of the Sherwood Shakeup. I'm your host, Matt Weinglass, and boy, do we have a fun show planned for you today. Um, Man, so many amazing things happening in our community right now. It's kind of unbelievable how much momentum we've picked up recently, and we welcome all of you guys that we haven't seen in so long. To come back to our live events and engage with us again, and of course we have some more stuff coming up soon. And also I want to let people know, if you're tuning into us for the first time and you're just discovering us, or if you were at our event on this past Saturday, which we're going to tell you guys more about that in a second. If you just recently found out about us, what you need to do is first you got to like and subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications and you'll know when we go live, which is generally every Tuesday. We do our live show, the Sherwood Shakeup. We also let you guys know how you can get on our mailing list. Just go to sherwoodplayers.com right now or after the show. Go to sherwoodplayers.com. You can sign up for our mailing list right at the bottom, and you'll be first to find out of all the exciting stuff we have coming up in the community. But the Sherwood community, we are designed to be a home base for artists in LA, but also around the world. I mean, because we're online, we stream. But for those of you in the LA area, we welcome you with open arms to come into our community and participate in our functions. We do industry events and workshops and screenings and comedy shows. Now we are doing those. We have feature films in the works and audiobooks, animation, documentaries. We do a lot of stuff, but the thing that connects everything, the through line through all of our projects and all of our events, is that we want you guys to know that we are coming at things with courage and with heart, and we want you to feel empowered as artists to express yourself and tell your stories and not feel held back or don't want you to feel hesitant to put your art out there. And so we're here to build your resources, build your network as we build ours. And there is power in numbers, power to the artist. So without further ado, let's check in with our senior correspondent, Lizette Santiago.
Hi, I'm Matt.
Hey, how's it going, Lizette?
I'm doing good.
Really? You're doing good. Awesome.
Good. Little hectic day, and it's
hectic
hot.
Day.
It's hot here in North Hollywood.
It's hot. It's hot everywhere in LA right now, but you got to be inside with the AC on, I guess. I don't know.
I was outside today and taking a walk and stuff and doing a little exercise, and being in here now, my AC, it's so nice.
Awesome.
Central AC, gotta love it. Hey Matt, I saw you doing a little dance to the theme song. Is that like a little choreographed thing?
I was feeling it today. I don't know. I think I was extra inspired more than usual. I don't know. It might have to do with what the weekend we just had for Sherwood.
I was about to say, I'm kind of feeling the same thing too. Like
you
a
are?
little on cloud nine. Like, it was such an exciting, fun, exciting weekend. I think we had.
We did. And for those who don't know, we hosted our very first comedy show live in person, and we did it. We did it as a team, and we did it at the Pineapple Hill in Sherman Oaks, and it was called We're Still Here, a night of uncensored stand-up, presented by the Uncanceled Comedy Collective, which included Sherwood Players and, of course, the great Jamie Kennedy, who performed. He was our big headliner, and he just killed it, didn't he?
I mean, it was awesome. Oh my God. He was just, every single thing he said, I was laughing. He had me, first of all the comedians were really good. I have to say, when it comes to comedy, you got to make me laugh, and every single comedian just had me on the floor. They were all talented, amazing comedians.
Yes, and they did justice to what we were trying to do, and everything kind of built until Jamie came out, and so everyone did their part, and he just hit it out of the park. So it was,
and he kept going too. He kept like doing a little encore show. He just kept going. He was having fun. He was like, "Wait, I can just keep going. Everyone's laughing, loving it. So I'm gonna just take it home, and he
I
did.
think he clocked about an hour, and to me, that feels like that should be about the time of a Netflix special.
Yeah,
So I don't know, Netflix, if you want to give us a call, we
uncanceled.
have literally an hour stand-up show
That's
done and
Kennedy.
delivered for you.
That's awesome. That's a good
So
idea.
yeah, right. So Lizette, as our senior correspondent, you had the opportunity, and I was so happy that this worked out very well. But we were able to interview some of the comedians after
Yeah,
the show, including Jamie Kennedy.
that
And
was
I'm sure that was an amazing experience for you. I'm going to
well,
ask you about it. I'm going to ask you about it in a second. But let's play a clip from your interview with Jamie Kennedy from Saturday night's show.
oh boy, here we go.
Anyway, Jamie Kennedy was our headliner today for the show Uncancelled, produced by the Sherwood Players. And Jamie, I wanted to ask you, man, you have done it all. Comedian, writer, actor, what brought you out tonight to do this show? Why this show?
Well, the first thing is it's Bill Devlin is one of my really good friends. We're connected on a deeper level. It's too long to go into. I performed on shows with him with sold out 500 people, and I performed with 20 people in the back of an Irish shop. And they're always incredible. And he's one of the few people that kept comedy going during the pandemic. And he told me it was a charity and it was a benefit. And then I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then it wasn't until I got here do I realize what I was doing, and I was like, oh my, like this was the saloon that I saw that had this crazy hypocritical moment in our society where people were shooting TV shows before the vax, and they're allowed to eat outside. But Angela, a small business owner, was not allowed to have people outside. And I thought, that's fucking insanity. So I remember that was a touchstone moment in the pandemic. And then when I found out that I was part of it, I was like, count me in.
That's my twin sister.
Great job, Lizette.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask him stuff, but you ask him one question, he's so good about just, keep going and going and going. I was just like, you know what? He knows how to deliver and talk. So I'm not gonna, he answered all my questions, but I love how he just keeps going with stuff and just, and I didn't want to interrupt the wonderful Jamie Kennedy.
No, you did great, and timing's everything. And I think we all understood there was a time where we could, kind of. I mean, it was hectic. I mean, let's. I think I don't know if we made this clear to people. We sold the thing out and more. There was an excess of people. It was actually very hard to contain get everybody in there. So you can imagine like Jamie coming in, doing his set at the end. I mean, it's just so much going on, so much chaos. I'm just so shocked that we were able to get him over in the corner where you were and get his attention.
And the funny thing is, because he did an hour long of his show, unexpectedly, he was starving. He was hungry. So I know he wanted to eat, and he really did want to do the interview too. And he was just like, listen, let me just order something and we'll talk more and more and more. And I really want to give you a good interview. So so we literally waited for him to order food before they closed. And then he got his food and he was happy. And we're like, okay, good. Now we're going to have this interview. So it was, something to wait on. But the fact that he wanted to do it was just amazing. Him and a lot of other comedians wanted to be interviewed by me. And it was just such a fun. I have fun with all of them. They were amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. You were able to talk to all of them. They all were like, yeah, I want to get a word in. And it was because like, and this is not, obviously you're cool and, Sherwood is cool. We're cool people, but I don't think that was the main reason they wanted to talk to us is because we were cool. I think that they had something to say because we were doing something important. We weren't just holding another comedy show that could have just been any interchangeable night or any interchangeable lineup. I think we were doing something even with that cool logo that we came up with, that our other producer, Andre, had come up with the concept. He sketched it out. And then our graphic designer, Louis Mandropilius, he came up with the design. And it was something that, we're going to have again. And we're going to have that logo. We're really proud of it. We're proud of the Uncancelled Comedy Collective. It's a group. It's an offshoot now of Sherwood. And it says something about, using comedy as a way to kind of fight back and have courage and not hold back your words and speak your mind and not and hope you don't get canceled, but we can be more powerful as a team. And I think those values, as far as what Sherwood has been about way before like the last couple of years of COVID and everything, like we've had those principles instilled in us. So I just love that they were drawn to it, and it worked out really nice, and we're going to continue in the future with these guys and with Jamie and the others. And
it was such a fun night. And it's funny because you and I talked about asking them just one question so that we were not bombarding them with questions after doing their skit, their segments and stuff. And I asked each one of them the same question, and they all, like you said, they all had something to say. Like, I think they really appreciated that question because it made them talk about COVID, talk about their own personal experience with COVID and why they do comedy and why they wanted to come out to do this particular show. And it was just good to hear their stories. And I got to interview Andre too, the producer. So I wish I didn't know about the sign, but man, he had a lot to say too. I got to talk to him for a while as well. So he was one of the main producers, as you said too. And I got to talk to Andre as well as pretty much all the comedians too.
Yeah.
So
great. And we look forward to seeing all those interviews very soon, Lizette, and some of the show too, that we actually obviously, because our awesome team headed by producer David, who produces our show here, he led the camera team that filmed everything. And so we're putting together stuff right now. We're going to be releasing some of the highlights from the show on our YouTube channel on Sherwood Players. So please, guys, log in now and like and subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we will be getting these out to you soon. And you're gonna like it what you see. I think I really feel strongly that yes, we got some good stuff up there.
And I wanted to say too, the whole reason too for everyone coming out was to benefit Angela and the Pineapple Saloon Grill in Sherman Oaks and all. And I think she had a great night too, because I heard everybody saying, I just threw down $200 and this and that and food and alcohol. So, and this is a lot of people. So I was so happy about that. I mean, I was like, wow, everyone spent money, but they knew that they didn't care because it was going back to her restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it really benefited her too. And that was the point of doing this as well.
Yeah. So. And in the future, I want to stress that there's something beyond. I mean, because Angela, she's such a great person. And if you guys if you want to get to know Angela a little more and you haven't had a chance, if you weren't at the show or you want to get to know Angela more, check out our last week's episode of the Sherwood Shakeup, and you can see a full interview. She came on the show last Tuesday, and we had a real heart-to-heart about what her story was and how it led to us doing this event with her, and how in the future it's not just about Angela and her establishment and her story, but she wants to help other establishments, other small businesses, people who had it worse than she did. I mean, she had it bad, but she was helped. People saw her. And so I know she feels bad even personally that, she got a lot of attention, and some other people, they've shut down. They're gone. I mean, we have literally lost 1/3 of the small businesses I believe in California, if not in the whole country, over the last 2 years because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown. And that's really sad. And we need to shine a light on that, and we need to help each other and understand that we're all in this together in the sense that it's not just about following the rules and doing what they tell us, because when we do exactly what they tell us, we also people also get hurt, and they lose their livelihoods. And I think we just need to shine a light on that other side, which doesn't necessarily get as much attention.
And the small businesses suffered, and so did the customers. There was my favorite places to go to during COVID shut down too, unfortunately, and now they're not there at all. And it's heartbreaking because I liked visiting those places as well, and now they're gone, and it's sad for the customers too. So
So on that happy note, I mean, not so happy, but let's get excited right now. We're going to move on with the show and get to the topic of discussion today, which is directing, and that's great timing because we have our director's course coming up in Sherwood. I'm very excited to be hosting or to be teaching that class starting next Monday. But yeah, I'm excited about that, and I know Lizette, I think you'll be helping us out with that or be part of that too. I hope.
I'm still hoping. We'll see.
Okay, great. It's all good, but we're getting a nice group together. So we'll talk to you guys more about that in a second. But thanks for checking in with us, Lizette. It was awesome doing the show with you on Saturday night. You were great again. Just
Thank you.
wonderful. And
Yeah, by the end of the night, I needed some food and drinks. It was awesome. No, I had such a great time. Such a great
awesome.
So
Okay. Well, take care, Lizette, and we'll catch up with you next week, or later on. We'll see. We'll yeah.
Yeah, have fun with Sasha. I love Sasha.
Yes.
It's amazing. So talented, creative, and I'm excited to hear what he's got to say too. So
Awesome.
have fun with
Okay.
it.
All right.
See
Take
you
care,
later,
Lizette.
guys.
Lizette Santiago, everyone. Okay. Awesome. So moving forward, I'm about to bring in our next guest. He is a director, producer, done over 20 films, based in Serbia and in LA. He's the president and founder of 888 Films, but a real storyteller, a real hard worker in this industry. Got a lot of stories to share with us. We're going to talk about directing right now. And with that said, I would like to bring in our guest from, he's in LA right now. Let's welcome to the show, Sasha Knezev.
Hey, Matt, how are you, buddy?
Hey, there he is. Sasha, thank you for being with us today. You're our you're a returning guest. I'd like to let people know you actually our first guest when we first launched the show last year. So welcome back, a returning guest. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Very cool. So I want to kind of give a little background on you. So if you could tell us and the viewers what, what got you into filmmaking originally, and how did 888 Films come to be, and how did you get into directing originally?
Well, I don't know. I've always been an avid reader, and my parents immigrated here from the former Yugoslavia, and I was always into movies. Where I grew up in San Pedro, I had a really prolific group of characters I grew up around. We had a pretty wild childhood, and for some reason, I got into actually a lot of trouble growing up. I always like to challenge things as a young child, and so I got a lot of trouble in school. I went to actually a couple different schools, and I always had this sort of rebel gene in me, and I always questioned things, and through it all, I was always an avid reader, and I really got into people like Mark Twain and Ernest Hemingway, and I started off in theater, and I really liked theater because I was able to kind of do these little shows and write my own screenplays and direct things. I never really knew if I didn't know if I really wanted to get into the filmmaking industry and just filmmaking in general. There was just this moment in me that I started off as a business marketing major, and then there was this moment in me that just said, you know what, I'm going to do it, because I've always been an inherent storyteller. I mean, it's just something in me, and I always wanted to tell my story. So I ended up going to USC Film School, which is a pretty good film school. I went there, networked with a lot of people, but at the same time, the difference was, I don't know. I always think that I sort of brought a pedigree with me that was a little bit different from a lot of the people there, particularly when I went to my master's program. I mean, I studied critical studies, which is more an academic film theory, which I really like because I wanted to be well-rounded. I published a book on film in Europe, and I've always wanted to, I looked at those older filmmakers that would write, the theoreticians that would write about film and film theory, and then make a film and then theorize about their films and talk, going way back. And so when I went to my master's program at USC, it was also critical studies, but I was the only one in the class that was making films while I was there. I was making feature films all on my own. I was shooting in my own neighborhood, in my old neighborhood. My friends were helping me out, and that sort of progressed. And then I started, just always doing subjects that interest me. I never went into internships. USC is a very good pipeline into the industry, continues to be to this day. And so a lot of my friends went into the industry, from USC as interns or, going studio from the bottom up. I never wanted to do that. It may sound strange to some people, but I just always wanted to do my own thing. It was much harder, and it still is, but I just wanted to just stick to my stories and do films that I wanted to do. from there, I opened up a production company in Serbia where what we do, that's more of a service production company where we help people bring films at a lower cost and shoot with tax incentives. And that's how I met you, obviously.
Right.
So I'm pretty diversified. So I work with a lot of people, you know, in bigger films and, you know, in the industry. And a lot of people I met from my colleagues from USC, and one of them is a president of a pretty big studio, and I'm working on a TV series. But I've always used that to approach them with my scripts, with my stories, with my TV series, to where I didn't have to compromise myself. That's always been something that's very important to me, not to compromise my beliefs, not to compromise my storytelling integrity. Now, we know Hollywood is Hollywood, and there's good Hollywood and there's bad Hollywood. But on my end, I really took a really, you know, the films of the 1970s and the entire modernity stage of American films was really those rebel filmmakers of the time. You know, at that time, Scorsese was a rebel filmmaker. Yeah. So was Coppola, and so was Brian De Palma. There were so many of them, and they challenged cinema. And I remember reading, you know, Scorsese, and you know, we can even go back into people like Milos Forman, one of my favorite, who came from Czechoslovakia, a communist. He came from that era of the 70s. The tragic figure of Roman Polanski came from that era, but films like Chinatown are a staple in the cinema canon. And what really got me about those guys, and I read about them so much, is they would argue with the studios. They would literally fight for their films. You know, they would not allow it. They would be arguing with them all the time. They'd want to preserve the integrity of the film. I remember reading about Scorsese and Taxi Driver saying, "You're not going to change this." And there was more of that compromise, you know, and I think that's what, you know, as the industry progressed into where we are now, in my generation and older, I think that we sort of lost that compromise, and the studios have taken more control. There is still a window there are still directors that are doing that, and it's much harder, but I always wanted to stay that path. And fortunately for me, I've been able to do that, and I continue to work to preserve that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a great talking point, like a great debate point, when we're talking about having conviction versus compromise, having that courage, which I really want to get into this, and how Hollywood has changed over the years. And, you know, I actually think it's even worse than what you said, because when you even think of compromise, you think of people sitting in a room and negotiating. I think it's gotten even worse than that. I don't even think there's filmmakers today don't even negotiate anything. They're just like, give me the check. Here's kind of the script I want to tell. What do you want me to do to it so it can get out on the big screen and get me paid, and more importantly, keep you happy, so we can keep a good relationship and no one gets upset, and whatever that narrative you want to tell, I'll be your vessel for that narrative. And so we see a lot of examples of that today, and it's very sad to me. And that's why I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean, let's really look at that. I think a lot of filmmakers aren't aware of the change that has occurred, because you're mentioning. I agree. Yeah.
The thing is when I studied that, I mean, there's so many filmmakers that sacrificed themselves to get us here. And now what have we done with them? It's like we stepped over. I mean, there's a great female filmmaker named Maya Deren, one of my favorites. She was she springboarded the avant-garde into the American cinema. She's a fantastic female filmmaker. A lot of her stories are pretty much erased, but she died penniless, and she's influenced so many filmmakers that have taken her genre, have taken her stylistic devices and tropes, and have benefited off it. A lot of the music video tropes and styles we see are from her, and she's virtually unknown. And there's so many filmmakers like that sacrifice everything for the art to get us here. And you know, it seems like you said, many filmmakers will make that dangerous compromise, and they'll take the check, and they will not even, you know, consider, do I want to do this? Do I believe in this? Is this right? Am I advancing some other agenda in this that I'm not aware of? Or maybe I am aware of, but I don't care. And so I've always tried my hardest. And I'll tell you, Matt, I've turned down some big offers. And when I made my film American Addict.
Yeah, I want to get into American Addict, because this is when I heard this story from you. This is a story that all filmmakers need to hear, and also like to the fact that you're talking about documentary filmmaking, which is a real form of true gritty raw storytelling, where you're literally taking your camera out and you're saying, I want to get this story I want to get as much information as I can and get the truth on film. And like that's like real work, like in the dirt. And people know that documentaries don't necessarily make any money. So you know that when people take that camera out and you go on location, you set up your interviews, you're doing it because you really believe in the story. You're not going to get that big paycheck on this documentary. So let's hear this story, because I see the poster behind you, American Addict. This is a film. Like let's tell us about what happened, your experience making American Addict.
Well, prior to that, I never did a documentary. I was doing narratives, and I just finished a film on human trafficking, but it wasn't a documentary. It was it's called Fragments of Daniella, and it's about sex trafficking of Eastern European girls, which I've always tried to, study the world and understand what's going on in the world beneath the surface, and try to study all sides of everything, because there's 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories to everything. And I've always, I've never personally trusted the media. And when I made the film, I was approached by these producers, and what happened was, I thought it's about the pharmaceutical industry, big pharma, and I took it as a job of mine to go in there with no bias, just to be sort of an investigative journalist, so to speak, within the framework of the documentary genre, and to see what I would find. And I went to the FDA.
And what year was this? So we clear.
This was 2011.
Okay.
And it was really hard to get in the FDA. We went to Washington, D.C., and I interviewed so many people in Washington, D.C., people related to the industry. And I was shocked to what I found. And when I covered the film, I found the collusion between big pharma and through the prescription drug industry and Congress and politicians and the government. And at that time, I exposed Bush's collusion with big pharma and his administration, and how much they got from big pharma in terms of lobbying money and all that, and the bills that were passed by Bush to reinforce, their the industry. And the film went on to be a pretty good success. It was seen in, I don't even know how many countries, like 30 something countries, maybe 40 countries. We were nominated for Best Documentary at the Seattle Film Festival. Seattle Film Festival is a really good international film festival. It's a pretty big film festival. Food Inc., if you remember that one, that documentary debuted at Seattle and ended up being nominated for Academy Award. So we got a lot of traction. We did a lot of interviews. It was on Netflix. It's on Amazon Prime right now. But what happened was, after it was finished, the producers, wanted to do a second follow-up some years later. I think it was 2015 when we did it. And at that time, again, I'm a what's the word I want to use? I don't want to use the word that I'm apolitical, because I'm very political, but I'm not a partisan.
You're not a loyalist. I think
I'm not a loyalist because I don't like to be labeled. So I don't trust any. Honestly, as an artist, my conviction is that we shouldn't trust any politicians ever. None of them. They're all liars, and they all have self-interest, and we need to monitor them. That's my personal belief. So at the time I went in, Obama was in, and I did a film with I started tracking the Obama administration's collusion with the big pharma, and it was just as bad and perhaps even worse with Obamacare. And I had bigger names in it. I had Matthew Perry in it. I had Jonathan Davis from Korn. We had Dennis Kucinich, presidential candidate. We had Ron Paul. Ron Paul was in it. We had like original music from Cypress, members of Cypress Hill, Syndog, and it was pretty big. I thought it was a more in-depth film. Personally, I love American Addict, but I think as a film, the second one's better. And it didn't do nearly as well, and Netflix didn't pick it up. And my own personal belief was that what I found out was because it was critical on Obama, no more than it was critical on Bush. And when American Addict, the first one, came out, all the comments on Netflix from people on the right wing said, "Oh, this is a propaganda piece against Bush, and you're a lefty liberal." And then when it came out, the other one came out, I got the opposite. And
That's
that's not my
incredible.
job. My job is to show it to be unbiased. And there's a lot of filmmakers that do not do that.
That's
And
incredible to me, Sasha, because it's like you're going into both films with the same intention of uncovering facts, uncovering truth, and you're not
to the
going
best
in
of my ability.
You're not part of a political party. You're not part of the Republican Party, the Democrat. You're going in and just Bush happens to be in office when you're making the first film. Obama happens to be in the office in the second film, and then you notice your audience changes, even though you're doing the same uncovering of the same messed up system of the profit over people system, which involves a lot of corruption. No matter which president's in office, you got the corruption in place in big pharma. So is that you're saying that you could see the audience completely shifted when you did the follow-up?
Yeah, that's what it did. And I wanted to take a break from documentaries altogether. And then what happened was, to further that, I got an invitation, gosh, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember the exact date, but I'm not going to name the event, but it's a pretty big international event. And it's basically a foundation tied to some of the biggest names in Hollywood and biggest political names you've heard. It was hosted by Nelson Mandela's son, which is a good thing, that but one of the things that I did not like about that was the fact that I was looking at these people involved. I'm talking huge names. I don't even know, to begin with, I don't even know how they found me. They emailed me a formal invitation. It was the weekend of the Academy Awards. It was the day before the Academy Awards, and it was somehow linked to the Academy Awards, and they invited me as a formal guest and for my activism in film through my American Addict series. And I was looking at these people, and honestly, I rejected it. And the reason I reject it is because some of these big Hollywood names associated with it were associated with issues that I know for a fact through several different means that they had no clue about, nothing. A lot of them were advancing American foreign policy interests. A lot of them were advancing the military-industrial complex. A lot of them were advancing transnational corporations, these big foundations that I'm pretty well versed in because I've been studying them for a while, because I like to be well informed. And my favorite filmmakers were always the ones that were three-dimensional and well informed. People like Oliver Stone, for example.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Stanley Kubrick, another example. Milos Forman, Emir Kusturica from Yugoslavia. These people were well-rounded individuals, and I always wanted to be like them. You have to know the world, and I think one of the problems with us in as Americans is that we don't know how the world works, and it may strike some people as a shock that nearly 70% of Americans don't have passports. I think it's 60-something%. And
wow,
so we live in this bubble. We live in this bubble where the world is mediated to us through media, through big corporations. And now in this age of social media, it's become incredibly dangerous, which is why I appreciated your event the other night with Uncensored. So when I turned that down, I had so many people and my family and friends telling me, "Are you crazy?" But not everybody. I have a lot of support. I have good support. And
they're saying, "Are you crazy?" Because you're turning down a lot of money.
Well, it was an event. It was an event. Okay. It wasn't money.
They're not offering you like an appearance fee or anything like that.
No, they weren't. But I mean, it was the second time they invited me, and it was sort of like something that if I went, perhaps I would have went in that crowd, and perhaps I would have got all the funding I needed for certain projects or whatnot, and I would have maybe
So you're saying like you turned down people are like, "What are you doing?" Because you're turning down an invitation.
It was just an event, but it was by big names.
Yeah. To be in a room with this exclusive room where it's invite only, and once you get in that room, you have complete access.
Big foundations, big huge actors, Council of Foreign Relations, founded the Hillary, the Clinton Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the actors that they're, the films on the surface are promoting peace and whatnot, but in essence, in my opinion, from what I know, it's a lot of it And not all the people involved in it obviously know that. A lot of the people believe they're doing a good thing, but for myself, I think it's advancing certain things that I don't want to be a part of, because not those people aside that I mentioned, I'm not personally saying anything, right now. But what I am saying is that some of the actors associated were representing films from like, Africa or Southeast Europe that I know for a fact these actors have no clue about. So I think they were being used, and perhaps they think they're doing a good cause, perhaps they don't. But I just thought that it was one of those compromises that perhaps would have, advanced my career up until now. But I didn't go, and that was the second time they invited me, and I don't think they're going to invite me anymore. But the point is that I've always tried to keep that integrity, and now looking in these last this was before this big censorship purge, sort of. Yeah. Now looking back, I think I'm very glad what I did, and because I don't believe in censorship at all. I believe in the First Amendment, and I believe as artists, it is our job to fight with everything we have to preserve, our right to, our expression, our beliefs, our words. And I think we've been doing that for so long, and I've seen this shift. And one of the good things I like about you, Matt, is when you and I met, we met basically strictly on business to work on a film together. It wasn't until much later, because, there's times when I used to do a lot of media, and I stopped doing media, and I stopped doing social media because I didn't like the divisiveness of everybody just, this divide and conquer, everybody at each other's throat while the machine moves on. But when I realized how, your passion for free speech and your show the other night on censorship, I just think it drew me closer to wanting to work you even more, and we become good friends after that.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, Sasha, because we need to act with courage. And I think that's one of the problems we have in Hollywood. And I think this is just based on the fact that people, artists who are drawn to this town initially, and we are, by definition, I think when we're chasing the dream, by definition, we are careerists, right? Because we're wired like a careerist. A careerist yes. being somebody who will do anything for their career. And that's how, as an actor, even, we are literally wired that way. Like, whatever I have to do to get.
And we've heard the stories.
Yeah.
We all know that.
When you get used to that, when you get conditioned in that mindset of anything, like I walk in an audition room and it's like, oh, you want me to get on all fours and bark like a dog? I'm doing it. Oh, what else you want me to, it's like, whatever you want me to do. It's, I want this job so bad. And I think that wiring stays with us. So when we go from acting to writing, to producing, to directing, and which we're talking specifically about directing, because directing is about having a vision. It's kind of like the opposite of the actor's experience. So as a director, if you've gone your whole life as an artist and a performer, and like, hey, whatever you want me to do, how do you turn something down? Like your example of something that turned down. How do you turn down a careerist opportunity when you're handed a check or you're written a check? You're like, this is the story you're going to tell. How do you say no to those things? So I guess that's I think the conundrum of the artist, and we just have to be able to tell these stories now and educate our fellow artists in our communities, in our networks, and let them know, like, it doesn't have to be that way. You can say no. You can walk out of the room. A
good example is Jamie Kennedy the other night, the event you hosted. Yeah. He's a very, very successful actor, comedian. Yeah. And the guy's, telling the truth, and I'm sure he's turned down, or he's been, offered many other opportunities that he's turned down, and he's probably closed a lot of doors, and a lot of people won't approach him things, but you know what? He's doing fine. He's doing well. Yeah. He's not compromising. And I think there's more of us out there than we think. I just think that our voice is being suppressed because, we have we're in a very scary age right now. I think of something I like to call moral exhibitionism, and also sloganeering, where through the social media and media platforms and all the comprehensive medias, they have the power to package something on a whim. Like, for example, the war in Ukraine. It's packaged, it's perfected, and it's sold to the audience, and it's all through social media. And people believe that they're doing something that's morally good, and it's moral exhibitionism because they want to be on Facebook, and they're calling volunteers now with no military experience to go fight in Ukraine. They're getting slaughtered. This is an absolute tragedy. And I don't even want to get into, the sides of the issue of the war, but we have people painting their colors or their faces in blue and yellow that have no idea what's going on there because of clips that are being shown on our media that's advancing, things that are, that are advancing transnational corporations, the IMF, big banking, the military industrial complex. And to suggest that and to be called a Putin shill or an apologist is an absolutely frightening thing in this time. I mean, particularly with people that have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And we could talk about Oliver Stone if you want.
Let's talk about Oliver Stone, because I think that's a good starting point, because it is hard to explain the complications of what is happening over there. And we don't expect the average person or even the average artist to be engaged and know exactly what's happening. But let's start with Oliver Stone. Let's talk about what's happening with him right now.
Well, Oliver Stone is, I respect immensely. I'm not a fan of all of his films because nobody's perfect, but for the most part, I'm a huge fan of his films, his writing. The man is an intellectual. The man knows history. The man always goes in and looks at every angle of every subject. And he did a documentary called Ukraine on Fire, and it touches base on the 2014, they call it the Maidan Revolution, which a lot of people don't even know is what led us to here. And all he did was provide an opposing view to the other side, because there's 2 stories, 3 stories, as we mentioned, to every conflict. And he talked about people involved in the coup, who was involved, the corporations, the NGOs.
You're talking about the 2014 coup.
Yes, the Maidan Revolution. This is what got us here in Ukraine.
Yes.
He simply provided an alternative viewpoint, which you should have regardless. You shouldn't jump into anything without knowing every side. And he was banned on YouTube. And you can see it on Rumble, Ukraine on Fire. I would urge everyone to see it. And I always say, think for yourself. Make up your own mind. Make up your own mind. What's happening in Ukraine is a tragedy. People are being killed.
So I want to say this because I knew about his film. I remember when it came out. I remember making a mental note. I want to see that film. I will get to it one day. It went on my list of.
It's on Rumble. It's not on YouTube anymore. Yeah.
Well, this is what happens when I discovered. Oh, it's actually been on Netflix since 2014. It had been on there for 7 years.
Yeah.
And then I hear this. When it turns out, when you go on Netflix now, it's gone. And what happened was he got a notice, I guess, right when after the invasion, he gets a notice from Netflix saying we're taking your movie off our streaming service because your film violates our violence policy.
Yeah. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, you could go back in the media and you can look at major publications, major outlets that have covered the Azov Brigade Nazi groups in Ukraine that are just, sort of revising everything and wiping off their history. It's amnesic. So, my thing is this. I mean, it's the height of hypocrisy to look at our military industrial complex that has been, since actually World War II, the amount of countries that we've, we never, when we get involved in countries, it's not an invasion, it's an intervention.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're bringing democracy, right? We're bringing peace, and that's always the.
And here's what scares me about this. We used to be able to debate things, have people sit down and give both sides, and just so you could understand what is going on from all sides, because you should. And what we have now is, just one-dimensional. What's really frightening is we have a one world view of everything. Yeah. So you name the subject. It's not even politics, medicine, politics, war, identity, whatever it is. It's a one world view. It's coming from no diversity of thought.
It's coming from a Western media narrative that kind of, like you said, it takes over everything, and that's the only. So you have to be aligned with that in order to be accepted and okayed and welcomed into the club. If you're in Hollywood, like to be in the club, you got to be on. You have to toe that line, and if you don't, you're going to be exiled. You're going to be like, no, get the hell out. Exactly. And you'd be called all the names you said. You'd be called whatever. Currently, you're a Putin apologist if you want to show any sort of discourse. But you're right, Sasha. Like I remember back in Sherwood Players, we had a offshoot company called the Underground in 2005, and we were doing a show for LA 36 that was streaming. Actually, at the time, it was a big deal. Everyone streams now, but back then it was a big deal. They were streaming globally, and so we actually tapped into a big worldwide audience at the time, and we did a weekly show every Sunday, and it was a variety show for different artists to show their work. And like, who would have thought? Like at the time when we marketed our show, we marketed it as a voice of dissent. The Underground was a voice of dissent, and of course there was pushback. People got upset. They're like, "Hey, what are you saying? Is this?" We were pushing back. They were pushing back against us. But what you said is the things that have changed now is you can't have those conversations now. We could have the conversation and we could rile people up, but nobody was trying to cancel us just because we were saying, hey, maybe the Iraq war is a bad idea. Maybe it might be for oil. It might not be a legitimate war, and we want to have the voices on the fringe. We want to be able to express ourselves, and the artists that were expressing themselves, they had a platform to do it. Of course, some people would be mad about it, but that's okay. We could engage, debate, even not like each other if we didn't want to like each other. But nobody was getting canceled. I don't ever remember us being accused of being a Saddam Hussein apologist ever. So what is, because that would be ridiculous. Like, why would we? We're not trying to propagate another bullshit.
I mean, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. You can go on and on. And the thing is, I mean, this is why I love the filmmakers of the 70s. I mean, this is where you can read documentation of these filmmakers sitting around and arguing. Scorsese, De Palma, Coppola, they're sitting there arguing about, different styles. Spielberg was in that conversation. They're sitting there arguing about format, about different beliefs. And then look at the writers in Paris of the 1930s. We had Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ezra Pound. They're sitting there. They were arguing. And then, this is part of it. I don't want to say they were arguing, but they were showing all sides. And now war is not, is a serious matter. But we have to look at that. We have now, for example, in the West, we have universities that are canceling Dostoevsky, my favorite writer, one of mine, Leo Tolstoy, Tchaikovsky, the great
Russian composer.
I mean, they're banning
Tchaikovsky.
Yes, the Welsh Philharmonic canceled Tchaikovsky. There's universities in Italy that are banning Dostoevsky, Leo Tolstoy. And by the way, I'm not Russian. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're Russian." No, I'm not Russian, but I am a fan of Dostoevsky, Leo Tolstoy, and Tchaikovsky. I mean, these literary figures.
I think we got Sasha
for their country. Are you there?
I got you now. Okay.
We have tennis players from Russia that are being forced to denounce their president and their country to be allowed to play in major tournaments. I mean, this is absurd. We have accounts of hospitals in Germany refusing Russians. We have filmmakers. There was a filmmaker in America, Kusturica, who just got an award he won from a Czech film festival because he visited Russia and just met with Putin. I mean, this is very serious. I don't think people understand history. And if you do understand history, you'd be incredibly frightened right now. So I think what we need an intellectual revolution. An intellectual revolution. That's the only thing that's going to save us. And we have to look beyond these endowments. And to be honest with you, I think the universities have a lot to do with it as well, because they get endowments from big transnational corporations, from banks, from the military industrial complex, and it's that one world narrative that is really, really pervasive right now. And you have, the other day I was last week, that now Facebook's allowing a public assassination posts on Putin or the Russian army.
That gets me. That really, when I heard that, because I heard the same thing. So Facebook is making an exception internationally right now for hate speech. So all this
for killing. Lindsey Graham called to assassinate. I mean, this is unprecedented. I mean,
so Facebook is going to allow any hate speech right now, any violent threats, anything dangerous. What they've always called danger. If you do anything violent, words that are violent words or suggestive violence, suggested hate, you should be canceled. And I don't think it's hard to argue that if it's a general rule. It's very hard to argue that. That seems fair to me if it applies across the board. How
Right.
the hell does this company, who claims to be about protecting people and keeping people safe, all of a sudden are making an exception to their own rule and saying, you know what? Never mind those principles. We actually, it was never about principles. It was actually just about, like you said, the Western narrative. We have to keep a certain narrative. Now that it's convenient politically for Facebook to say, you know what? You can actually do hate speech against Russians. You can do that. We're
And
going to
target assassinations. And then they say
assassinations. Yeah.
And then they say Russia banned Facebook. Oh, well, look at their censorship. Well, they're targeting assassination of soldiers and families and soldiers. And I mean, this is, regardless of what you think, this is unprecedented. This is like, Warsaw in the 1930s with the Jews. I mean, you're targeting people, and they want to throw out Russians out of universities. They took a football club in Chelsea from a Russian order. They're freezing bank accounts. I mean, is this democratic? And they're not even having, look, I'm a big fan of JFK. And one of my favorite speeches that I would encourage everyone to listen to was June 10th, 1963 at American University in Washington, D.C. He had a speech, and you can listen to it online. At American University, 1963, June 10th, JFK speech. He had a speech where at the height of the Cold War, he reached out to the Soviet Union and said, we have to put our differences aside, and we have to look at our collective interests. We all want our children to have a future. We all breathe the same air. I'm throwing out a context. We all inhabit the small planet together. We all breathe the same air, and we have to learn how to compromise and put our beliefs aside. And we have to look at the unifying factor of that. 5 months later, he was assassinated. Okay, but at least we had leaders at the time that would sit down and talk. Nobody's talking. I mean, all the Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter. Their point, to me, their job is to keep us internally divided on domestic issues. And then we're fighting at each other's throat on domestic issues. And I'm not saying those issues aren't important. I'm saying they don't give a shit about them. And while we're doing that, the military-industrial complex marches on. And there's not one person, you will not find one anti-war congressman on all sides, none of them. They're all Vietnamese pro, and this is something that just happened at the turn of the century. We used to pretend, at least they used to pretend, at least, especially the Democrats, but that's a different story.
So what can we do as artists to fight back against this type of behavior, or this type of misrepresentation of who we are and the storytellers that we are? What can we do? Like, what is our duty really as storytellers? What do you suggest, Sasha?
Well, I mean, I'm optimistic, to be honest with you. I think we're going to turn this thing around. I'm always optimistic because they have to be. And I think events like you had the other night, which I was in attendance with Jamie Kennedy and a lot of people. There is a contingent of people and celebrities that agree with us, and they're out there. And I never knew Jamie Kennedy had these beliefs until I saw him the other night. I'm a huge fan of his now. I mean, I always was, but I mean, now the guy's just, I've become a huge fan. So they're out there, and there are movies that have been made, smaller ones, but there have been actors, there have been movies here and there that have challenged this. Rachel Weiss has been in a lot of incredibly, powerful films that challenged. She was in this film called The Whistleblower that was produced by a friend of mine called Christina Piovesan, a producer. And it talked about during the war in Bosnia, the human trafficking related to DynCorp, a huge military company, the United Nations, NATO, the U.S. She made that film. There's a film she made called The Constant Gardener, that showed about pharmaceutical testing on Africans. Jeremy Renner was in a film called Kill the Messenger. I mean, these films you probably haven't heard of, but they're being made, and there's actors that are willing to work in these films. And I think we're getting to the point now where the censorship is getting so bad that people are waking up, and we just have to keep sticking together. Sherwood Players is doing their part. You're opening up, workshops, events as much as you can. And we have to find those people, like-minded people, and encourage them to speak out. Because if not, look, Milos Forman is one of my favorite directors, and he came from Czechoslovakia, okay? Mm-hmm. Communist Czechoslovakia. He made a film called Fireman's Ball, a political satire about the corruption of the communist regime and everything. That film was censored Okay. It was censored by the country, and he fled. He came to the United States because of our freedom of speech, because of our First Amendment, because of our uncensored. And he made films that challenged the stuff. We challenged authority in every sense of the word. Look at all the films he made. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He made Amadeus. Who was making. I mean, look at his style when he was, the composition he was making for, the Emperor compared to the other artists. He did Man on the Moon with Andy Kaufman. Man on the Moon, which is about a comedian, Andy Kaufman, who pushed the edges of comedy. He did
challenging establishment, challenging the power.
The People versus Larry Flint. Yes. The People versus Larry Flint.
Challenging power, challenging the establishment. Yes.
And here's my problem, Matt. Milos Forman is gone. Oliver Stone is 75. I'm going to give Clint Eastwood some credit because he's made some pretty powerful anti-war. Look at that generation, Matt. These people are like, 70s, 80s. Who do we have?
Who do we have?
You see what I'm saying? I think that the door is open, and I think that this is an incredible opportunity for us. I think this is the window to make, to have a resurrection of film, a renaissance, an artistic renaissance. The time is now. The moment is now, and the political climate is now. And I honestly do believe it's going to happen.
So our films that we put together, so aside from the events and the workshops and the community stuff that we're doing already, and we're going to continue doing that, the films that we construct, the teams that we put together for those films, we want to have a common goal, and that is to use our storytelling abilities to challenge establishment, challenge power, speak truth to power, do something important. Don't just do the bidding of the power and tell the stories they want to hear. Tell the stories that for the people, for what we want to hear. Is that, easier said than done, right?
Let's look at the positive side of censorship. And there is. It's the fact that people are aware and they're making these videos and posting them. That's why they're afraid. So we have the means now of production to make anything we want. And now this entirely vertically integrated system is having, so we can show films any way we can. And I think we have to start from the bottom up, but we're doing it. Yeah. And they don't have that. I mean, look, another thing that happened in 1996 was Bill Clinton signed the Telecommunications Act, 1996. That concentrated the media to 5-6 companies. It was 6, it's 5 now. Yeah. I mean, all the print media, radio, film, television, you name it, magazines, internet, it's all 5 corporations. Did you know prior to that, in about the 80s, we had about 10,000 different media companies?
Yeah, so now I watched it all just plummet down, like you said, down to 5 or 6. It's incredible, and
it's down and 2 parties, right? Yeah. 5 corporations. I mean, that's it. Yeah. But we have the means, the technology's there, and we have to look at the fact that one of the reasons they're censoring us on YouTube because people are making films. They're probably aware. That's not going to go away. It's changing different platforms, and now we have alternative ways of funding each other and supporting each other. They will be seen. And there's a lot of artists that I know of and you know of, big Hollywood names that are willing to attach their names to independent films that have, that have a good script to deal with it. It's been done. It's going, but we just have to be aware of what's going on. And we have to, like I said, I keep stressing an intellectual revolution. We have to understand how the world works. Politics is a dirty game, okay? And politicians are dirty. We need to keep an eye on them. Yeah. Okay. That's what we need to do. That's why we have, people say, well, I don't like politics. Well, the reason that you have been uninvolved is why we're in the situation, because we need to keep an eye on them. And we need and we're doing that. And we need to understand history. We have to look at every angle of every country. Russia's been around for a long time, and they lost in 1 century close to 100 million people. If you look at the Bolshevik Revolution, if you look at World War II, I mean, that's a lot of people, and it doesn't mean what they're doing is right, but we have to sit down and value. They lost nearly 100 million people. In World War II, they lost estimates of 20 to 30 million people. So they feel that when they pulled out of, the Soviet bloc, which they lost millions of lives, when they say that we don't want to be encircled by NATO, which is the other side of the coin, we need to listen. And the same with the Chinese, we have to understand what happened during the Opium Wars in the 19th century. The Chinese, there was the Opium Wars where the British Empire was dumping opium on their population. The Chinese government naturally wanted it to stop. and the British Navy power at the time was the strongest source. They bombed the hell out of them. They made them pay the reparations. That's how they got Hong Kong. I mean, people don't question, oh, Hong Kong, that's how they got it. They did it a second time. Again, the Chinese refer to this as the century of shame for what happened to them. Now, is it me? I'm a apologist for the CCP. No, I'm not. I'm not an apologist. I'm very anti-communist because my family's experienced that. But we have to look at these things, and we need to have this, we have to read. And I think this, glossing over things and looking to sound bites of 5 minutes from either Rachel Maddow or Sean Hannity, it's the same thing. Look at the things they agree on, not the things they don't agree on. And you'll see that it pretty much reinforces the same.
Well, Sasha, this has been an incredible conversation with you. I can't believe how far the time has gone. We are going over just a little bit.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Matt.
No, it's okay. We're going to go over to Clubhouse soon, but I did want to and it's okay. We when we get into stuff, it's okay. We can go over sometimes. So, but I want the audience, we are going to be the live audience. We're going to be on Clubhouse very soon to continue the discussion. But I do want to take one question right now. Right here on so we can finish up on YouTube. When is filmmaking a job and when is it a passion? Can both exist? Does a director have more of a responsibility than a gaffer or editor to believe in their work?
Well, look, we've all heard the term do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It depends. I've done commercials. I'm working on a TV series right now with a big studio, big Hollywood studio, through people I know. But they took my script and I made a contract with them, and we're working on developing a series together. It's my work. I own we made a contract, and I'm sticking to the integrity of the film, and I made that clear with them in the beginning. You'd be surprised. I pitched this. We've been pitching this TV series to major networks and studios. And I was surprised to how many people, and this is a TV series called Harbor City. It's about the port of Los Angeles and the how the port influences so much politics and the union. And a lot of my friends are union workers, and you'd be surprised how many people are open to that, but also have these beliefs that are trying to find that little crack or that project to express it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot, and I've noticed that. So I think that we have to, always consider that compromise, and know what your limits are. We all are different people, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Know what your line is that you won't cross, and walk up to that line. And we all need money, and we all need things, but use it to your advantage.
So yeah, well said. And so if I could expand to answer that question, I would say the passion will always be lost if the director doesn't start with it. So when is filmmaking just a job? It's just a job when the visionary himself or themselves don't have a strong vision to begin with, or a vision has been compromised. And of course, that's going to trickle down. Everybody is going to feel like, we're just clocking in and clocking out. But I can say that if the filmmaker at the top, the ones who created this, whoever wrote the script, is spearheading the production, spearheading the experience as driving the bus, the director, if they bring that passion, it can trickle down. And I think a gaffer or an editor can absolutely feel like they're doing something important. They're part of a story that needs to be told. And you can feel that. You can feel that on set. You can feel that in post. And you certainly can feel it when you go to the premiere and you're sitting in that and you're looking up and you're going, this is the accumulation of all of this hard work, but more than hard work, something that was important. And there it is on the screen. And there's the audience, standing ovation at the end or whatever. Or they walk out because they're like, I can't stand it.
I saw that Saturday night at your event. I mean, that was wonderful. I had no idea what to expect, to be honest with that event. I know it was going to be a good event, but I had no idea how many people were so like-minded. And of course, that event was related somewhat to COVID and the lockdowns and all that. But people are out there. They need a voice. I think, what you're doing with Sherwood Players is amazing. It's just going to grow and grow. People are looking for, people like you and in your organization, and they're looking for somewhere to go to talk about this. And a lot of people are afraid, but I think that as time goes on, you know, people are starting to open up their eyes more. I really do. I honestly do. And I'm not saying that to be, you know, naive or anything. I think more and more people are opening up their eyes, and it's just a matter of time until this, it's going to be a watershed moment. And then those of us that have been fighting for this are going to be extra, you know, then all of a sudden people are going to start, you know, coming towards us and joining us.
That's so well said. I appreciate your inspiring words, Sasha, and it's always great to have you on the show with us. Will you stick around for Clubhouse when we
Sure, no problem.
Awesome. Very cool. So stay right here. I'm going to go ahead and sign off right now. And I want to remind everybody to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification for the Sherwood Players on the YouTube channel. We have a lot more content we're going to be uploading to you soon. We got a great show planned for next week with our animated series Crash. We're going to have some of the stars and the behind the scenes people come on, and we're going to have a little reunion and announce our launch on Roku. It's going to be Crash will be premiering on Roku on Genre TV on April 1st. And so we'll have the whole cast and crew on with us next Tuesday on the next Shakeup. For now, if you guys liked the discussion about directing and you want to get more involved in the directing process, you go to our website, sherwoodplayers.com, and we will direct you to right on the homepage. You can go right to the director's course. We're starting up next week. We have a few spots left. If you want to join up and be part of the 8-week directors and actors course, we'll have a live showcase at the end. It's happening at the Complex Hollywood here in Los Angeles, and we're looking to fill a few more spots. If you're ever looking to get into directing and acting, or you're an experienced director or actor, hit us up. Go to our website, sign up, and we'll see you guys in class. Back to face. Here we go. We're gonna do it. So, and I want to say thank you again, Sasha, for the conversation.
Anytime, brother.
Absolutely. And you guys can check out Sasha, 888 Films in Serbia. And what else? What's the best way to personally get hold of you?
I'm not on social media, unfortunately, but you can find me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Look for Sasha on LinkedIn, guys. And if you want to connect, and we'll see you guys on Clubhouse in just a moment. And for those watching it on the on the replay, that's cool too. So we'll see you next week for another episode of the Sherwood Shakeup. Power to the artist.
Peace.